For almost 5 years now, I've been streaming Minecraft every single week and playing with my viewers, and in that time, I've had the amazing experience of being able to meet thousands of wonderful unique players from all over the world. I've also in that time come quite a long way in terms of equipment and quality. From starting out with humble beginnings playing on Minecraft PlayStation 4 console edition and streaming from my PS4 without even a face cam, to having my own Bedrock Edition realm and eventually streaming from my PC. One thing that hasn't changed in all that time though has been my desire to continuously keep trying to improve and grow, and for what feels like the longest time now, the biggest thing stopping me from doing that has been my exclusivity to console edition and the limited amount of people that can join me. So after all of these years, I finally decided to move fully over to Java Edition and start my own free to join Minecraft crossplay server, and this is how the first 6 weeks went. Here we have all the peeps right now. We got a big, beautiful, big server right now of wonderful, amazing people right now in the game. As you guys can see, 30 out of 30. Server is popping off. We're about to go right now and go go and start the beautiful town of New Woodbury. Woodbury 2.0 with all these wonderful, amazing peeps. They're all going to hopefully be building their own like little settlements and kind of getting themselves all kind of, I guess, yeah, situated and settled down. Some peeps like this guy right here and some others, I mean, look at this. Got the freaking diamond armor already. Like, this is mad. You know what I'm saying? Some of y'all got diamond armor. I'm bloody right now and literally just full iron. Y'all in diamond. It's crazy, right? So yeah, let's get heading over, shall we now? So on the 7th of July, the server officially was open to the public and I streamed for the first time on it. On day one, me and a huge group of settlers founded the small town of New Woodbury, a reference to my previous Minecraft Let's Play world. The town was a small wooden-based village that didn't really have any solid plans or foundation beneath it, but people quickly moved in and made it a comfortable little place to live. Go here like that. There we go. Welcome to New Woodbury. There you guys go. Little beautiful sign. For the majority of the first day though, I just really struggled to build my house due to Saeed, of course, but aside from that, Monster, or as we like to call him, Hammy Boy, somehow managed to also find the music disc other side. Oh god. Hello, you say, Saeed, is this going to be my life now, Saeed? I moved over here and I thought you couldn't get me on Bedrock, or you could get me on Bedrock, but I didn't think you could get me on Java, and here I am, and here you are, and this is my life, you know what I'm saying? This is it. You're saying, god damn, I can't escape him, you're saying. I have other side, Joey. Oh, shush, you're lying. You're lying. I'll give you a single diamonds. There's no way, we've been in this game for 2 hours, there's no way you've got other side already. Nah, it's peg set. You're lying. There's no way, wait a second. What's that disc? How? Wait, what? When? Wait, how? Hold on. No, wait. Let me play. I don't believe it. I think you're lying to me. What? Gently now. Right, shh. Shh. Tunes, man. He's making a bass boom. Oh, my ears. Not. Who ruined it again? You're getting banned. It was Saeed. Get him. Ban him. Ban it. Saeed. Ban Saeed. The first day ended well with the server at points having a full 30 players in game and the town of New Woodbury looking actually rather impressive for just being 1 day old. Look at that. Beautiful, just lovely sunset. The first the first sunrise of the new city. New town. Not city. You know what I'm saying? Hey, you on the left. Oh, who done that? Which one was it? Who was it? Of course. For the rest of the first week though, there wasn't really much more that happened that was that eventful or crazy because everyone was mainly just trying to find their own feet and actually starting their own bases and obviously grinding for materials. And of course that also included me because as I mentioned at the start, I did start building my own house in New Woodbury, but I quickly decided that I wanted to live elsewhere. So I tried moving, but I could not find an ideal place to live. So pretty much what was happening was everybody was progressing faster than me. I had nowhere to live and I was actually the host of the server and the owner, but I still had basically nothing. Eventually, I did end up settling back at spawn and started construction on my castle, which was slow but worthwhile. Like, I know, it's just a minute right now, we're not going to difficulty on. Most likely tomorrow we'll have difficulty put on and we'll start going from there. That's where I was stolen, darn. I'm going to ask Dinaries if it's no trouble. I know you said you got a lot of cobble. Would you mind if I take some more off your hand if you don't need it, or do you still need a lot? If it's cool, if you can't spare any, don't worry, I can go mine some. Sure, come get you, sure. Meanwhile, back in New Woodbury though, players had been grinding non-stop to get good equipment, but perhaps none more so than the actual server supporter himself, Dinaries. See, Dinaries started like everyone else at the beginning of the server. In fact, he was there on day one, but quickly he scaled up his base and his ambitions. To give you an example of how big his ambitions were on the server, he actually ended up eventually teaming up with another server supporter called GT, and then they started together grinding more than any other player or group of players on the entire server. You remember that cool little house silhouette on the mountain from earlier in the video? Well, after a few more days of grinding, this was that house. Wait, what? You built a bridge? When was this? Was this over the... Oh my god, look what you've done overnight. Let me see, wait. Dinaries, oh my god, this place is beautiful, Dinaries. You make it, honestly, you making New Woodbury look beautiful, I can't lie. God damn, look at this. Marketplace in progress. This place looks amazing. This is incredible. I'm pretty sure it stays on the left side of the house. Far from done. Honestly, it looks amazing. We'll keep at it. Honestly, 100% dynamics. This looks incredible. What? Journey map, accidentally press teleport instead of add waypoint. Oh, I see. Fair enough. But yeah, so what's it? You need Obsidian? Oh, Obsidian. What's up? Is this for me? For Joel, thank you. Oh my God, you're an angel. Let me see. Is that some, oh my God, some food? Thank you so much. Honestly, Dinaries, I promise we will become good allies in this world. Now, after I left Dinaries base, him and GT continued their work and officially started their own faction called Incorporated Masters or Ink Masters, while the other players on the server focused on building their own bases and grinding for loot. Ending the first week off, I was pretty much just grinding non-stop. I was strip mining for diamonds and focusing on just trying to get some cobblestone for my castle so I could hopefully try and catch up eventually with Dinaries and the other players. And that takes us on to the second week, which was kind of lame. Now, when I say lame, it wasn't exactly lame in terms of it just being, well, lame. It was lame because of a few other reasons. My majority of the second week on the server was spent just gathering cobblestone for my castle and then building my own wheat farm to try and catch up to Dinaries, which was incredibly slow. I then built a warehouse for storage, argued with Unfortunate and Ali about going to the end too early, which, spoiler alert, they died a lot, and I ranted about Legacy Console Edition. I love Legacy, but even from a business point of view as a content creator, you've got to look at it, you've got to go, there's not enough here for me, that I need to grow. This isn't getting updated anymore. People are eventually leaving and getting bored of this. There's new updates on the new version. I can get realms. But one other cool aspect that happened that week was Emmy helping me to finally get schematics to work. Schematics, for those of you that don't already know, are basically holograms of builds that you can use to easily rebuild anything. And if I was going to be rebuilding my castle and other future builds, I definitely need these to work. This thing does is it allows me to see the full schematic for the castle and be able to kind of rebuild it block for block. So yeah, only where you aren't recording. Only works literally, Emmy. I mean, look at this right now. Look, event mark update. Let me go here like this. Emmy, 1 second. Let me go here like that. 1 sec. Right, dumb. Let me see what here, right? 1 second. It's a stupid about. Let me see what here, right? Schematic placements, placement on, off, on, configure. It's already all here and stuff like that. I don't know why I can't see it. Loading schematics. I don't know why it says unnamed. Reload. Emmy, reload skip from file. Reload perhaps. See if this works. It's being very odd. It shouldn't say unnamed. I mean, it says file castle, but I don't know why it says unnamed because it definitely has name. Don't touch I may have just, yeah. I may have just done that, you must say. For me, I was going to be using schematics to hopefully help finish my castle and then go into building other things, but little did any of us know that before any of that was going to happen, first we'd have to deal with something else, which was being DDoS. Now, in case you're unaware of what a DDoS is, I'll briefly summarize because it is a bit weird. A distributed denial of service or DDoS attack is a malicious attempt to disrupt the normal traffic of a targeted server, service, or network by overwhelming the target or its surrounding infrastructure with a flood of internet traffic. Now, in case you're curious, this is something that many people can do, and it has been a problem for Minecraft server owners for literally years since servers actually pretty much officially became a thing. However, up until this point, this was something that me and my channel moderators had never actually dealt with. We'd encountered Legacy Console Edition players who'd use exploits or glitches to crash our worlds and blue screen the game, of course, but that was really nothing. And then when we moved over to Bedrock Edition, we encountered countless hackers who with a single beehive could take down an entire realm or ruin a world forever. But this was just something entirely different and way more complicated. Now, thank God we had Emmy, who is basically our server technician, who was able to help us and obviously, of course, tell us what we really need to do, and obviously, of course, kind of speak to the actual server hosts that run our server, who actually told us that we've been getting targeted for days. Thankfully, before the end of the week, with Emmy's help, we were able to get the server moved onto a more secure and stable server by our hosts, but it was not exactly fun. But after the DDoS attacks and whatnot, we go into week 3, which is where things started to really scale up for me. So yeah, I decided to take a break, or in other words, pretty much abandon my castle at spawn project and move all the way over to the other side of the map to start construction on my new city. But yeah, so like one of the big things I wanted to talk about today, guys, was going to be obviously, of course, the actual first city I'm going to be building, guys, in the world. The first city itself, I'm not too sure the entire plan with it, of course, but I do want to build a beautiful big city, and I don't really know how I'm going to fully do it. I tried to name you tried to name tag me. Oh, thank you, my man. That's very generous. I'll name tag the chicken. That's what I'll be. So I'll name tag the chicken. But yeah, I'm trying to think where we're going to be wanting to build the city, because obviously, as you guys can see here, of course, we can see this is the entire map right here right now. Now, unfortunately, the areas that I was considering for a city was going to be maybe on this side of the map over here. If you guys can see right now, this kind of section here. But although it would be an okay area, it wouldn't exactly be ideal. You know, I was going to either do there, or I was going to do this little patch of land. Let me just show you right here. Kind of between the Lucent City spawn and New Woodbury, of course, which is just like a little chunk of land right here. But I really don't want to kind of intrude in both of those areas. I like the fact that there is a little bit of room between everybody, and I do kind of want to keep with that. So I'm just trying to think what my next goal is right now. If I want to just go kind of explore
brand new area, to try and find a new area to build the city and start that kind of project up. But I do kind of want to do it nearby as well, the castle, because I don't want to be too far from it. But I mean, it is what it is. It's 6.5 dozen. You know what I mean? If you got to be further away, you got to be further away. It is what it is, you know?
My plan with the city was to build 3 of my previously made best cities and join them all together with roads or obviously bridges. First, we'd build New Haven, then Atlas, and then finally Hyperion. So, as always, construction begun. I first worked on building a warehouse so we'd have some sort of stable base to sit in or stand in while we're terraforming or working on the landmass or cleaning it. And then after that, of course, we started working on roads and then paths and streetlights, adding more infrastructure, and then eventually plots for obviously future builds. Another thing that happened in week 3 though, outside of us obviously starting construction on the cities, was we actually went to finally beat the Ender Dragon. See, remember how I mentioned earlier that Unfortunate and Ali had been in the end constantly dying? Well, the reason for that was, well, because 1, they really suck in the end and they kept dying, but also for 2, because Emmy had actually made it so that nobody could kill the Ender Dragon, meaning that nobody could actually escape the end without jumping into the void. Now, it all sounded fine and it was a great idea until we actually went to go and fight the Ender Dragon and quickly realized that we had forgotten to ask Emmy to fix it.
All right, 3, 2, 1, boop. You know what I'm saying? Let's go. Meow. How do I join? If you want to come join, I just realized I didn't bring the blocks. Big brain. But yeah, if you want to come join, buddy, you'll have to wait a minute till the server itself is public. This is my first time fighting the actual dragon on in Java, by the way. The hell? It's so misty right now. What the hell? It's hella misty right now. God darn. It's whitelist only for now. Yeah, whitelist only for now, peeps. Let's do this, you know what I'm saying? God damn, man. My God, my arrows are weak, man. They be limp, you know what I'm saying? Forgot the fellas have already got bloody all the things right now. Oh gosh, my man's up there. Look at that. The boys are just flying up there, man. Look at this. Dudes are just flying up there right now in seconds, boys. I've only got so many arrows. There we go. I got a shot. Take aim. I got the achievement. Yeah, you've said. Or advancement. Oh my God. Is that all of them destroyed? I can't tell if that's all of them destroyed. I'm not too sure. I was about to fight with you guys. No, what side? You can come and run on it, man. I'll respawn it, my man. Honestly, guys, I'm really better than this. It's just because it's my first time on Java. Let me see here like this. My man's up there. 1 second. Freaking hell, man. Get him. Get him. He's going to land. Come on. Ah, come on, man. Oh my God, we're slain. No, Daenerys. No, man. Oh my God. Daenerys, did you set your spawn, dude? Oh my God, he's immune to arrows. Sorry for the noise. I know you guys can't really hear it, but yeah. Is he rehealing or something? Why is he invincible? Wait, Emmy, you did turn it off, right? Why is it like he's not taking damage? Joe, stop spam clicking. Oh God, Emmy, wait, no, it's not even spam clicking. It's like literally, he's not taking damage. Oh my God. No, it's invincible. I could not hit it. Somebody get Emmy.
I eventually did die as well from trying to escape the end using journey maps, which if you don't know, basically allows us admins and mods, of course, to be able to teleport over the map using it. But yeah, it was it just went to hell.
Shit.
Eventually, with Emmy's help, we did manage to get the dragon fixed and killed her, and for the majority of the week, I just grinded. When I say grinded, I mean I went end busting, because I knew that going end busting or going for the end cities and obviously looting them for all the elytras and end loot, of course, or, you know, end game loot, whatever you want to call it, was pretty much the quickest way of me actually catching up to Dinorays and obviously GT and the other players. And with the extra loot that I was gathering, I ended up eventually establishing a new temporary marketplace inside the warehouse at New Haven, and mainly just traded. So now I was earning a bit of an income from obviously trading with other players, trading my spare armor and obviously the spare tools I was getting from the end, and I also obviously of course now had good equipment. So construction on the city was being made piece by piece, with the help of obviously Dinorays and GT as well, because they ended up banding together to buy a plot in the city for their butt-shaped skyscraper and helping fund the concrete and lights for the city, which was really good of them. They also purchased a huge island off me just off the coast of the city, which they later named Chickenland, and started moving their entire operation from New Woodbury to there for security purposes. And while they were doing that, by the end of the week, myself and a group of other players who were looking to earn their own plots of land in the city were actually working on a brand new project, which was tedious terraforming. My plan was basically in a nutshell to terraform this massive mountain that was separating the flat land from the other side, from my side, which was going to take probably weeks if I'd done it by myself, but hopefully with help from others, maybe it'd be a little bit quicker. And with that takes us into week 4, which if I could sum up in one word, it would probably just be productive. I went into the 4th week by working on building my castle, not back at spawn, but actually near the city, which was now my 2nd time building the castle in the world because I'd abandoned the original castle and sold it to Hilo. I also, alongside working on the castle and obviously building the rest of the city, started working on a factory that would soon become my first proper business on the server. However, the biggest thing to happen on week 4 was my 24-hour long mega stream. The day started like any normal stream day. We had 2 hours on the clock and anyone could extend the timer by donating bits, gifting subs, or becoming a sub. However, this stream quickly got out of hand because by the end of the first 2 hours, we already had 12 hours remaining on the clock.
Yo, wait. Wait, Witch, you're actually nuts. Are you serious? Wait, Witch, no way. I just heard goose. I'm like, huh? Who said goose? You know what I'm saying? Someone said goose. I heard goose. Wait, Witch, no freaking way. Jesus, we've just had our goal, I think, of 175, have we? Are we one away or something? Are we hit it? No, we have. We're at 174. We're literally 1 sub away right now from 175. No way, White Witch. Gosh damn. To Cause, to IBIM, Mr. Goose, Walmozo, Pixelars, Scholars, Hardhat, Excuse me, I'm losing my voice right now. Hard Hat, Savage was taken. Let me see. Koi, Social Koi's pretty cool. Can here or Han Rear. Trevor, oh my god, Natty, Maggie, The Feck. Oh my god, this is insane. The list. White just trying to kill peeps. That's what it be. You know what I'm saying? White Witch, thank you to J-Star. Thank you, White Witch. Oh my gosh.
Then by 6 hours in, we still had another 12 hours on the clock. And this just gave us a perfect opportunity to start working on obviously terraforming that huge mountain that was in the middle of that actual island that we wanted to turn into a city.
Jamie, get that repair. Jamie, get that repair right now. That is actually scary bad. Let me see. You have what's it? Sorry, you best have the white one, Joe. Oh wait, you mean this one right here? I grabbed that out of my mom's fridge. It was in there right now, and the pink one as well. I'm not really too sure about the pink one, but I'll be trying the white one out soon. So yeah.
So with the help of my boy Hamboy or Jamonster, we spent pretty much all night terraforming hundreds of thousands of blocks and flattening off a massive, massive mountain. Unfortunately, however, the footage for the 24-hour stream is only 7 hours long, which is still quite a long amount, but it's not obviously the entire stream. And the reason for this is because sadly my PC ran out of storage during the stream, so I had to stop recording my progress any further, but we did end up actually getting the entire of the mountain fully terraformed and getting a lot of work done on the entire of the city as well, including the city center and the New Haven marketplace. Moving into week 5, it was quite a lackluster week to say the least. What had happened in a nutshell that made it so lackluster was not that I wasn't doing anything, but it was because I started working on multiple little mini projects as opposed to one specific project. And the illusion of doing this is that it basically makes it look like I'm doing nothing every single week when inherently I am. It's just a lot of smaller things that actually don't really add up to one big thing because they're not finished yet. For example, I started working on the Atlas City Center, which would eventually of course become the actual new city of Atlas. Then I worked on the pillars for the city tree farm.
Yeah, I meant. Oh Jesus.
I then went and bought way too much copper for the bee factory roof and spent what felt like an eternity mining and smelting it.
Is that built wrong? I might go nuts. That's about right? But you could build one yourself, man. Have different types of. Oh wow, wow, Ja, we might have a good deal here. Ja, you're the man I want to speak to, bro. Can we have a chat, my man? Like this, and I think I might build the bee business area. Nah, Joe doesn't do cocaine. Joe likes black tar heroin. Yes, of course. Yes. Stop lying, Joe. My God, this is why I get demonetized on YouTube. Y'all know that, right? This right here, of course, literally this.
Then obviously, of course, having to place the actual roof in itself. And that was pretty much the entire week. I also shaved my face and visited Unfortunate and GT's Wither Skeleton farm, which was incredibly impressive.
Now, how you guys are doing? You shaved? I did indeed. I have completely utterly clean shaven, as you can see. So I've got that nice baby face. You know what I'm saying? And the focus real. Oh my God, real solid on it right now. Halt tourist destination. What the hell? What's happened? Fortunate, where'd you go? It's went dusty, my man. The hell? The hell is this? What in God's name? Unfortunate, where the hell am I?
Going into our final week for this episode, week 6 was another slightly lackluster week, unfortunately, with all things considered. I spent 3 of the 4 streams that week working on finishing the busy bee factory that I had started just 2 weeks prior, and I actually teamed up with Axe as well to make the business itself work. Axel had beehives, I had a factory, together we had a bee factory, so it worked out quite well. Then after that, I started working more on the general store to obviously make it an accessible and viable place to go buy food from, and obviously a place where I could sell things, and of course my sugarcane farm, but that was about everything I did. The first 6 weeks had been amazing, with some super high moments like the 24-hour live stream and some not so super high moments like the server being DDoSed, but it was an interesting start to the server and hopefully one that brought a lot of joy to many of you. I really hope the server can run for as long or even longer than our previous main world, which we did. It actually ran for over 2 years because I'd love to see how much progress we can make in that amount of time. In just 6 short weeks, we've already basically managed to rebuild my entire city of New Haven, and we've also actually started rebuilding the city of Atlas, and those are just my builds. I didn't even get a moment to actually show you guys some of the other amazing builds on the server like Dr. Wasabi's Lucent City or the hidden admin bases scattered around the world. So hopefully in the future episodes of this series, I'll be able to spend some more time checking out those bases and exploring everybody else's bases in general. And with that all being said, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of this video. Thank you all so much for watching it. If you did go to enjoy it, please be sure to share with your friends and family, drop a like, and if you'd like to come join us on the server, please feel more than welcome to. As a small note, I'd like to just say obviously thank you to all the amazing and wonderful people who have supported this server, whether it be financially or just generally, but especially those of you that became server supporters and supported it obviously in a much more financial way. Your support really means more to me than you can actually fully imagine, and I really do hope that you'll continue to enjoy your time on the server because like I've said already, this does go a hell of a long way. I also real quick want to just apologize for the huge delay on releasing this video. I actually had planned to release these weekly. If you guys don't already know, I'm basically release these server recaps every single week or every single Wednesday, but due to me just being caught up in streaming, making other content, and also honestly just not being fully sure how to actually make this first video, I delayed it, but I really do hope that the wait was worthwhile. But other than that, guys, I want to just say once again, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you guys did go and enjoy this video. Please be sure to subscribe if you haven't already and turn on the notification bell to stay notified when I release the next episode of this series, which hopefully should be next week, and I'll hopefully see you peeps later on.